I watched the Queen's speech this evening. It's broadcast on all the main channels. Quite historic. It's only happened a few times before, and I've just done some research actually on what those previous occasions were. Um, 1991, the First Gulf War. 1997, the death of Princess Diana, that famous speech that she made, and 2002, the death of the Queen Mother. Her Queen Mother, that is, Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. They're the only other occasion she's addressed the nation in this way. Now, like I said in the previous video, unless I'm mistaken, this is the deadliest disaster to hit Britain since the Second World War. I'm counting the London smog of 1952 as the worst, because that cost up to 12,000 lives in just a few days in December 1952. That was a terrible disaster. Um, but there is nothing that's affected the whole country in this way since the Second World War. The Queen made a strong speech, very to the point, praising the NHS, um, and really talking about unity. I've always felt the Queen's a strong constitutional monarch. She evaded talking about her own son, but this was an address to the people. She herself, of course, will be 94 next week. Her husband's 99. So it was done in very strict circumstances. Apparently, the cameraman was 3 meters away wearing protective overalls. To be fair, I think the sovereign is going to have very heavy sort of protection. Um, but this thing isn't sparing anyone. I mean, the Prime Minister's fiance apparently is sick with coronavirus symptoms and she's pregnant. So it's, no one is immune from this. Few notable things about the speech. The Queen made homage to Vera Lynn, and she herself actually uh, made an analogy with World War II. This is coming from the Queen, who is, she is one of the few people who actually was living through that period. She was a young woman at the time. She took part in the war effort. So that's quite something. I'm personally a little reluctant to get into World War II analogies because there's a difference between a virus, a pandemic, and bombs dropping. And I'm a little bit reluctant to say that this generation's going through the struggle that that generation went through because I think it's a different kind of struggle. I mean, we're not worried every night about bombs dropping through the roof. So it isn't that sort of danger. And as it stands, we're passing the 5,000 mark tonight probably because it was 4,934 earlier today. Will be well over 5,000 now. That's a lot of people, but it's still a lot less than the 67,000 British civilians who died in World War II. Nevertheless, this is really a national challenge. And in some ways, the analogies aren't totally misguided because the restrictions that we're having are profound. Now, the Health Secretary was talking about the fact that the restrictions are not just guidelines, they are legally now required. But he kept saying they're crystal clear. I would debate that. I'm not so sure that they have been crystal clear. Certainly, go out for food, go out for medicine. But I think the problem is the exercise one is a bit ambiguous. So, for example, people have been sunbathing in parks. Now, that to me is a bit reckless, but some people may interpret that as well. This is my exercise. So, the health secretary didn't really. He said we're clear, go out for food, go out for medicine. Um, go out for exercise, but I think he should have elaborated what exercise is. I mean, people live in different sort of accommodations. So someone living in a cottage in the countryside is going to have a different definition of exercise as someone living in a tower block in a city, for example. So I think that I keep talking about this, but I think it needs to be clearly defined. But it isn't just in Britain where we're seeing wartime analogies in the United States. The Surgeon General said this week is going to be their Pearl Harbor moment. The American death tolls already surpassed 9,000. The state of Louisiana, where my brother and his family live, is heavily affected. I'm a little bit concerned about them because my sister-in-law has just given birth and my brother is a cancer survivor. So I'm a little bit concerned about them. But they're following the guidelines and they tested negative, or at least my sister-in-law and her child did, her baby did. But it's it's really affecting everyone. And I think that at this point, everyone is sort of understanding of well, most people understanding of the regulations, but I do feel further down the line, maybe a month, 2 months down the line, people are going to get really fed up with it. And that's no one's fault. It's just human nature. Um, I mean, the thing with the Blitz is, and where this differs in a way, this is harder, is that during the Blitz, shops still opened up during the daytime. People could still communicate. They could still, there were weddings going on during the Blitz. There was one tragic incident, actually, I believe it was in somewhere in North London. A wedding reception took a direct hit and 90 people were killed. There was a lot of incidents like that. But that sort of communal spirit was going on. There is something particularly challenging about social isolation. And that's why when Piers Morgan came out with that flippant statement, oh, it's well, all we have to do is go home and watch TV, that was pretty ignorant because for a lot of people it really isn't that simple. For older people, it's a real issue, social isolation. So it's all very well for him as a top TV anchorman to, come out with a statement like that when he has the luxury of being able to go into work and not have to isolate in the same way. Um, on the other hand, like I say, the best of human nature is coming through with this, but we are seeing sad cases of young medical professional dying as well. So I can't think of anything like this, and I just can't believe that in December that's really was such a secondary issue now is affecting every one of our lives. But anyway, I thought the Queen made a strong speech, and this nation's been through a lot. We've been through worse than this. We will get through it. Um, but I think it will take its toll. I think there will be an economic recession, but I think that will affect the whole world, not just this country. And we just have to make the most of this. Look at the positive things. It's been good for the environment. We've been seeing wildlife coming out. There were, of course, the goats in Llandudno. There were deers coming into central London. Apparently, it's a good song if you're a bird enthusiast. It's a good time to listen to bird songs in the street. Um, there was a poem that was written in tribute to the NHS, read out by Christopher Eccleston and Sophie Rayworth. Um, and it was a beautiful poem. But personally, I feel a little bit drained already with all of this, but I am understanding of the regulations. But I think, with all due respect to Matt Hancock, I mean, he's a man who's faced huge pressure, but you know, it's all very well saying you're allowed out for exercise, but by the way, we're going to punish you for sunbathing. I think you need to be more clear about what exercise is defined as. This is a very important point because we're not a totalitarian state yet. Most people are understanding that these hardline measures, which would be unacceptable any other time, are necessary. So they really do need to be clearly defined. It's all very well saying you're allowed out for exercise, but you can't sunbathe. Well, the problem is, and I do think that's idiotic. However, those people may not necessarily be deliberately reckless. They may genuinely think, well, this is my exercise, I'm getting out. And they may think, okay, well, I'm keeping 3 meters from the next couple or whatever. So that's why it's so important that this is clearly defined, not just a vague sort of you're allowed out for exercise. That's vague because exercise can mean any number of things. Now, to me, exercise would be I can exercise indoors, I've got dumbbells, but not everyone has that. If you're living in a tower block, you might not be able to do that. Your exercise may be a run around a block or something. So this has to be very clearly defined. Um, I'll leave it there. Stay safe, everyone.